What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 25 of podcast. Going to be joined today by Oliver Jones, co-founder and CEO of Manifold. And just before we get into today's show, got to get into the EF routing top hauls of the week. Coming in at number one for dry van, we got some Indiana to PA action hitting up to 3.1 a mile. Another Indiana to PA hitting up to 3.5 a mile. I looked at this a little earlier. The reefer freight seems to be off the charts. I mean, hitting up to $7 a mile, going out to Mass, $6 a mile, again out to Mass. Got some Texas freight for flatbed hitting between 3.3 and up to almost $4 a mile. Out of North Carolina to PA, anywhere between 3 and 4.17. So the flatbed freight's killing it again. Best loop for dry van, going to be a Dallas, Texas to Tulsa, Tulsa to Arkansas, Arkansas to Mississippi, finalizing in Dallas. They've gone with a 3 to 4 days on route for this week's top hauls, top loops. It's more of a, Tuesday to Friday or Monday to Thursday sort of situation. But you can see dry van, pretty high between 2.4 and 2.6. Best loops for reefer going to be pretty much staying in the south, getting in between 2.48 and 2.8 a mile. Again, another 3 to 4 day situation. Wrapping it up with the best loop for flatbed being Missouri to Illinois, Illinois to Indiana. Finishing up Indiana to Missouri, averaging between 3.2 and 3.74. I'm in the flatbed space. I'm hearing from the carriers, the market's kind of a little stagnant at the moment, but I mean, you can still make some money on the shorter hauls, that's for sure. But that's it for the EF routing top hauls of the week. Let's get into today's show. What's going on, man?
Hey, Alex. Great to see you.
Hey, thank you for coming by, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I want to get into this with you. Let's start quick, man. How did you get into logistics? We touched on it a little bit. We met yesterday.
Yeah.
But where was your start? What was your first exposure to the logistics space?
It was at Convoy. I was working in systems development. I won't spend much time on that before. And I'm an engineer software engineer by trade. And I always wanted to do the startup life. And so when my manager became the VP of engineering at Convoy, and he reached out to me, he's like, "Hey, you want to join? Like, a lot of hot things are happening there." And so I went, kind of toured the place. It was like palpable, the energy, like we were all on one floor at the time. And so all these brokers being all excited, brokering loads.
One floor start in Convoy. That sounds wild. Where was it when it ended off? It definitely wasn't one floor at the end.
It was like 5 floors. It kind of peaked and dipped. I was the 12th engineer when I joined, and but at the peak it was somewhere like 1,000 employees ish, and by the end it was around 500. Really wild ride.
So what did you do there? What was your start? What was your initial, not reason for being hired, but what was your initial kind of task?
Yeah, I joined on as an engineer, and I built the payments and invoicing platform. So how carriers got paid, that was technology I actually hand built myself. I wasn't a manager at the time. And like quick pay technology and all that sort of stuff.
So you were responsible for paying carriers. That's always a noble job, man.
Yeah, it was fun. A lot of fun. Fun story there. I remember like my first day, I didn't know anything about trucking. And so I'm from Seattle too, folks. And I saw this, they named their offices after different truck types. And I saw reefer, and I didn't know what a reefer was. And so I'm from Washington. I thought reefer meant marijuana. And I was like, wow, this is a really progressive, like kind of out there company calling you're like really like celebrating drugs. And he's like, no, that's like a refrigerated trucking unit. I was like, oh, okay.
It's funny because I had a conversation with Chad Olison from AVRL quite some time ago at this point, and we had touched on the topic. He's very pro tech people coming into trucking, but he's also very pro like teaching them before they get let loose, like
Yeah.
what trucking is and some general stuff. But we always had a laugh about it because we were saying, if you're a tech person coming into trucking, you should like pretty much try on your own to learn about it. But some don't, and that's the thing. Some people just don't want to learn, and they just want to do their like tech stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming you've learned since then more.
I learned a lot. No, I really went headfirst into the industry. I eventually, as my time went on at Convoy, I actually got to work on almost every single part of the business. I started out in the operations space. So making sure trucks got from A to B successfully, building a bunch of cool automated tech. Like one thing I also can claim to fame of is on the EFS code on Convoy's app, where you could easily request, an EFS code to get paid for your lumper or support or whatever. Like that was like the team that I built. I was like an intern that actually built it. So I got to learn all about lumpers and like
EFS. So people were able to request a lumper from you guys automatically.
Yeah, automatically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that needs to be like widely available, like in the trucking space. Because I remember being a dispatcher and just having to like wait around for a broker to give me a lumper, and that should be. I've always said it. I mean, that should just be prepaid or like the brokerage deals with it. But worst case, if you can't do that, then at least give us a button. Like, just give me the lumper, man. Let me get out of here.
Right. And it really didn't work out. I remember that was one of the biggest phone calls. Came, because truck drivers are calling dispatchers, and so it was like a win-win situation. Like the phone calls just dropped off a cliff, and there was like very little fraud. We did have some fraud cases, but like that's the reality.
It wasn't getting abused too heavily,
and it didn't. And if you really want it, we capped it at $500 lumper payment without getting a request, and then you just
most lumpers generally do fall in the 150 to 300 area. I've seen wild ones, but 500 is a pretty good ceiling, and most lumpers don't pass that.
Yeah, and that was a fun analysis that I did, so I got to learn about all that. And I was like, oh, look at when we were kind of making the case, everything's under $500.
Kind of spreadsheet of lumpers and was just like interested in the general cost of a lumper.
But that is like why I fell so much in love with logistics. Like I did that project and I got hooked. I was like, I'd rather be doing this and saving drivers' time, saving like actually making things more efficient, than going and like to working at a Facebook and like selling ads and like making slightly better for ads. It's like that doesn't make the world a better place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. If you're kind of a tech person getting into trucking, I think I've said it numerous times. I mean, trucking for whatever reason, it's like one of the most lucrative and like biggest industries with so much money flowing through it. And all of the tech, for the most part, I mean, this is like very overgeneralization, but a lot of the tech that like brokerages and carriers deal with and shippers, I'm sure on a daily basis, like it's very old. Like, I mean, it's old school. It looks like it's from like Windows XP era. Usually it's kind of clunky. It's not optimized. I mean, I think like freight tech is a really cool industry because you can have people that don't really understand trucking, but you can just kind of explain to them like a general trucking issue that should, like lumper, like for example, lumper payments. They should be automated. And there's a lot of efficiencies that tech can bring us. But at the end of the day, the day-to-day operations, it's old school, man. You want to pick up the phone. You want to, talk to people. Yeah. But I think tech like has a really big place to improve. Like you said, the driver's day-to-day life. Yeah. I think the drivers are the one that benefit the most from being more efficient with our tech, because it cuts down their wait times. And that's kind of like, in my opinion, that's where my heart lies, with the drivers. Yeah. So I like when the tech like helps them out,
Yeah. I was like a part of the project too, where we built automated detention, which I thought was a pretty cool innovation, right? Where like we would automatically start accruing detention on your app, and all you'd have to do is go in the app and just like push the button that says request detention. And we're like, boom, there you go. Like there was no more, like as long as you're using the app, like it was that simple.
Yeah, but you know what killed me was the first time I ever ran into automated detention process was with Spot Freight, and I think it was around 2020 or 2021 when they had switched over. I used to be able to get my detention from my carrier sales rep, like she would just send it to me. I think one day I came into work and I was like, hey, I need some detention. She's like, oh, we've created this new amazing automated process where you just go on this website and request your detention.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Like, I'm not slamming Spot Freight. I don't want to like make enemies here.
Yeah.
But dude, whenever I needed detention from Spot Freight, I used to give it to a coworker of mine, like somebody. I was like, "Hey, can you just request it?" They had a login. You need like a login. You need this. You need that.
Yeah.
I used to just give it to my coworker. I was like, "Please request this detention."
I hear you.
And it did come. Like, I'm not faulting them. Like, the detention did come. It was just, I'm kind of old school. I really don't like paperwork. I really don't like this unnecessary bureaucracy things. I want it to be fast. Like, I just want to be like JB Hunt, for example. If you like say that you're at the pickup and you left the pickup on the app or like on the website, or I guess on the app probably, and then at the end of the load, you do the same thing. I'm at the delivery, I'm gone. Then the detention's right there. You just be like, boom, I need detention. And
that's what it should be.
Yeah, it should be like that. Like, I don't need to write you an essay about why I need detention. I just want my detention.
I agree with that. I agree.
But so let's wrap up the Convoy thing. What happened at the end there? What was your role? Did you quit before they finished?
No, I wrote it right in. I was a big believer in the technology, right up to the very, very end. Yeah, it was really unfortunate. Like my fun story claim to fame there is I was actually one of two people that shut off the lights on the company. I remember very viscerally. Actually, I cried, by the way, when I legitimately cried.
Yeah, that must have been an insane conversation situation. I mean,
but I remember my manager. I was a director at the time. I was about to go axe throwing with one of my teams. They're like, hey, one of the managers was like, hey, Oliver, like, do you want to join us for axe throwing? I was like, hell yeah, like that sounds like fun. So we're gonna go axe throwing. It's like
team building, some beautiful,
some team building. And my manager pulls me, like right before I'm about to leave, he pulls me aside. He's like, hey, Oliver, can you turn off like all the spot bidding and all of like the Tinder acceptance? And I was like, well, like a jaw drop. And so then I pop back out. I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, man, I can't go. And we brought
I can't go axe throwing. Sorry, we're all about to lose our jobs.
I didn't say anything. And I remember,
you can't say anything. I'm sure.
Stephen Wosio, who he actually did a post. He's a coworker man. He did a post on this on LinkedIn, so it's like all public knowledge. But he also got brought in, and he canceled all the loads, and I turned off all the spot bidding and EDI acceptance. And like the funniest story,
two-man operation to close $1 billion revenue company.
Hey, automation, right? That's dark.
Easy on, easy off, I guess.
But it's been 7 months. I've had time to grieve.
But that's the thing. I mean, I'm laughing a little bit here and there because we've been through it. I mean, you and everybody at Convoy obviously went through it, and I'm happy that the community came together when the Convoy thing happened. Everyone was like, "Hey, if you need a job, if you used to work there," like people really did help the people there, which I'm happy about. I like to see the community come together, especially in a situation like that where you had hundreds of people affected. But it's just kind of crazy to me to hear out loud, like two guys turned off that size of a company, and pretty quickly. Like, that was a couple hours.
It was about evening. And then
it was like a chill evening, had a glass of wine.
I was sweating bullets. I think both of us were still hoping it was gonna be like some sort of acquisition because we didn't know that much.
Or just some kind of like April Fool's joke.
I remember Wosio. He was so he canceled all the shipments in like the middle of the night. Our head of security, he calls one of the VPs. He's like, hey, someone's impersonating Wosio and they're canceling all the shipments. And he's like, no, that's all to be expected. Go back to sleep.
This is just the unfortunate closure of our company, man.
Yeah, I know.
Don't worry about it. Just go back to sleep. We'll figure it out.
No, I'll figure it out the next day. But
so you were just the tech engineer. You love tech. You came into Convoy. You ran tech. I mean, you were there. You said 6 years, right?
It's almost 7 years. Almost
7 years. So that was your beginning. That was it, right? Like you were you got into that was your logistics career, like. That was not a little bit of time, that's for sure.
And then I moved into doing a startup.
So let's get into that. So you came into Convoy, you learned about logistics, you learned about trucking, you dealt with all the tech, the unfortunate closure. You were kind of turning the light switch off over there. What followed after the whole Convoy thing? What got you into like the Manifold thing? What is Manifold? How long did it take you? Did you take some time off to grieve? I mean, what was your next step, outside of the Convoy thing?
So I always wanted to start my own company, just something I've always wanted to go do. And
Yeah, it's tough because you either want to do that or you don't. And
yeah,
I mean, most people think they want to do it, and then they start doing it, and then maybe they don't want to do it. But
yeah.
it's like it takes a special kind of person to be like excited about doing that, because most people are too scared, or like there's a lot of financial risks involved, and it takes a special kind of person to be like, oh, I want to start something. Like,
Yeah, and that way it was a silver lining of the closure. Is it kind of kicked my butt, right? I
yeah,
always
like
kind of wanted
forced you to do it.
it forced my hand. I don't know if in all honest to God's truth, I think if Convoy didn't close, I would still probably be there right now.
Yeah, you'd be chilling in your
Yeah,
routine. You'd be,
yeah,
doing what you always did,
yeah.
right?
But it was honestly one of the better things that happened to me. Getting my butt kicked, I got out. I applied to this Y Combinator, this startup accelerator, somewhat on a whim. All of a sudden, they kind of responded back to us and they accepted us. And I was, all of a sudden, like this hit off this huge deluge of just like all of a sudden, I was like, I guess I'm in startup world now, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I mean that's the funniest thing, because so in my logistics career, I've been through multiple companies. I just
Yeah.
couldn't find the shoe that fit best. But the funniest part of all of that you just reminded me of is my second company in logistics actually did fire me for attitude reasons.
Oh no.
Yeah, like that was the first time in logistics that I've ever been fired. Like I just like took a phone call. My manager was like, because it was a work from home job.
Sure.
I answered the phone. My manager's like, hey man, sorry to tell you this, but you're fired. Like management, like the upper bosses just made that decision because I couldn't do anything. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, bye. And I just hung up, turned my computer off. I was like, shit, man. But that pushed me into the next job, which I found
Sure.
great success and I loved doing. And
Yeah.
like there's always a silver lining when stuff like that kind of goes down, because I wouldn't have probably left that company, thought I wouldn't have found that one. And it's a ripple effect, right? It's like the whole butterfly effect thing.
Change is good. Change is good. And generally, in my life experience,
Generally, it leads you to better places if you look at it in a positive way. Generally.
Yeah. I know there's bad things, but it just.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks. Honestly, it sucks. Like, I remember that 2-3 weeks chilling with my grandma every day. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to work, man. Like, I don't know. Like, nobody's replying to. I was terrified, dude. But then I landed where I landed. I was super happy. But let's get into Manifold. Like, what is Manifold? What is it?
So Manifold is a platform to aggregate all of your spot freight, whether you're a broker or whether you're a carrier. We put all your spot freight into one location and let you make it really easy to go bid on. So let's like say you're the broker scenario, because that's kind of where I came up with it when I was at Convoy. Convoy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm newly a broker, so this should apply to me.
Is Convoy had all right? We had all these customers, all these different shippers, and they had all these spot opportunities available for us, right? And it was really hard for us to go bid on them because they were all in these different platforms. And so what Manifold does is we go and if you're a broker, we'll go aggregate all of those spot opportunities from every single shipper you work with into one spot and make it really easy for you to place bids on them, understand your win rate, understand your analytics, and that sort of thing. And then likewise for a carrier, just the same thing. We bring all their spot opportunities into one spot and make it really easy to bid on.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously you can't give away the secret sauce of all of this, but how easy is it for the broker to get into the Manifold ecosystem and bring in all of their shippers into it? And I mean, how long of a process is it from start to finish to kind of get all of those shippers in the Manifold, website? Or ecosystem?
It really depends. It's getting faster because we have to go build all these integrations. So it can be as short as, day of, we can get them all like turned on. But normally for like a larger broker, it can be a month or two, right? Because we got to, if they have 10 customers we've never integrated with before, we got to go build all 10 of those custom integrations.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of went over this. Obviously, you're still trying to kind of determine how small is too small.
Yes.
And obviously, I had already said this to you. I'm like, man, if you have like 3 customers, obviously you're not going to probably find a value.
Yeah, we're not going to help you out probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is more of a mid to large size, enterprise almost situation.
Yeah.
But I would imagine you could find some, smaller operations that could still find value in it.
Yeah. The one cool feature that we built that I never
I like
knew.
how like excited you are about it. You're like, I can like feel the excitement coming off you, man.
Was this email ingestion. So we actually also ingest email opportunities and parse them. And we do a pretty stinking good job at it. Like, yes, like if you want to go break our system, yes, I guarantee you can break it. But
Yeah, I mean, if you like intentionally go in with the want to destroy.
yeah. The one thing for sure we can't do is it's amazing how often it happens. I'm like, I got to figure out a solution for this. They shippers will send like a screenshot. They'll be like, hey, can you do any of these loads? And it's like a screenshot. I'm like, come on, like at least give me some text to go off of. Now I got to do like OCR on this. Like it's.
But that's kind of how trucking is, right? Like it's like one of those things. Me and Chad were talking about it too, because he's like one of the only like tech. I called him this. I mean, I guess you would kind of fall into. You guys are like tech bros, you know.
Yeah, fair enough.
You guys are the tech bro community, you know. And we were kind of joking around about that kind of stuff, where like in trucking you hear that sentence a lot. Like it's just how it's always been, bro. Like. And people will just send you like a screenshot of a load list. I'm guilty of it as a broker.
Yeah.
Carriers like, what lanes do you have from like Pennsylvania? I just send them like the most bad screenshot of like 7 shitty like quality lanes.
It's easy.
Like,
it's easy.
It's just how it's always been, right? Like,
yeah.
So I mean, I'm hoping Manifold will kind of shake things up a little. Like that's the thing with trucking. It's just how it's always been, and it's like one of those kind of tradition things, right? Where like. This has been going on for a long time, man. And like you have those movies like Smokey and the Bandit from back in the day.
Love Smokey.
And there's like an allure to old school trucking. And there's a lot of still like all those old heads, like they're still on the road. Those old guys, the original, like the real truck driver, they're still there. And I think we're probably 1 or 2 generations out from seeing like like the kids, you know, like the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, like it'll be a long time till we get to the point where every truck driver like is very good with a smartphone and very good with apps and very, you know, like, but we're going to get there. I mean, in the next 20 years, probably you're going to have the 25-year-olds who are now 45. You're going to have the 50, 60-year-olds who are now retired. So, I mean, there is going to be a generational change in truck drivers. We're pretty close to it. I mean, to be honest, right?
Yeah, it's happening. You know, it's amazing how time passes. You know, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 10, 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, we were just touching on that, man. Like, I feel, you know, like I remember when I was 18, man, and I'm like almost 30. And I'm like, whoa, it's like just like this. Once you start working, you're just an adult, and like time just kind of like goes.
Man, wait until if you ever have kids, it like doubles. It feels like double speed. I have 2 kids, and I'm like, I have a 9-year-old. Like, what? Like,
dude. I have a
9-year-old.
Yeah, I have a younger brother, man, and I remember holding him in my arms when he was like 40 minutes old.
Yeah,
and he's like 12, man. I was like, whoa, like, what's going on over here? He's like in school, he's doing crazy stuff. I'm like, damn, man.
Yeah, it's probably
Manifold is a brokerage tool. You are tailored for the brokerage market, right?
We're both. We really. I mean, like I know it because we also target carriers. And tech companies actually, like, because what we're really trying to specialize in is just like we aggregate spot freight. That's what we do well. That's all we want to go do. So, you know, we're happy to plug into a TMS. We're happy to aggregate spot freight for a carrier. We're happy to aggregate spot freight for a broker, right? It's just like,
yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of people miss that, right? Like carriers do bid on spot freight. Like they do basically RFPs, RFQs, like, you know, they do stuff like that. And I think a lot of people just don't understand the carrier side of things. They've never been on it, or they just don't get it, right? Like you can't just, there's a lot of tools, a lot of tech that's marketed for brokers, and then they just don't realize that, hey, like this could also work for carriers. They just don't think about it, right? Like, and I mean, I think LinkedIn as a whole is like very broker heavy. There's not there's not that many carriers on LinkedIn in our community. So I think people just build tools for like brokers and then just like gloss over the carrier side of things.
Sure. And that's like one thing I'm trying to change, or at least like my mind, because I came from a broker, right? So like I haven't been, and it's and I understand there's like, at least what I've been told, you know, and I'm still learning. I'm not ever student, but
logistics
the carriers don't have as much margin to spend on tech. And I'm like, let's change some of that. Like, let's make tech valuable enough for them, right?
Where it actually is a profit add rather than a cost, right? Like, let's let the tech bring in profit rather than view it as an expense.
Exactly, and helps change the game up a little bit, right? And that's like something I'm definitely excited to go.
Yeah, I think because carriers are already bleeding from expenses with their equipment, right? So like they're really hesitant on spending money. Where like if you go into most large carriers, like They have a load board subscription, maybe 2 load board
Yeah.
subscriptions, maybe a PC miler, maybe they use Google Maps, and then they have a phone. And I mean, carriers like the dispatch side of it, they really try to like cut down on any tech spending because they see it as kind of an unnecessary spend on unnecessary, especially in this past 2-3 years of the market, the way it's been. People like me and Chad were also going over this where we were like, he said, I think he said this, where he said it's better for a carrier or broker to try to find a value add to bring revenue in rather than focusing all of their effort on cutting costs, because cutting costs isn't bringing money in, it's just saving you money, right?
Yeah, yes, for sure. And that's something we try to do in the Manifold platform, is try to help you. The other interesting thing, my experience while I was at Convoy was it's actually really hard to cut costs. And the reason why is you can't, let's say you automate a third of someone's job. You can't actually fire that person because they still have 2/3 of it left. And then also there's this like magic work that just like suddenly appears. And so it's
magic work that suddenly appears. I love it. That's logistics in a nutshell. Yeah.
It was like a very hard thing to like really measurably reduce costs. Like that was a very hard problem to solve. And it wasn't just a simple matter of like, hey, let's go automate this one process, because it was so often you'd be like, well, sure, like our metrics are down and like efficiency's improved, but you're like, are we spending less?
Like, like at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you can kind of use tech to cut down on those like menial tasks. But like you said, you still have to have a human somewhere. And like maybe if you're a huge operation, you can implement tech that can like save you a couple employees' salaries. You can trim down, but that really only works if you're a massive operation, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're like a 10 to 20, 30 person company, you're not going to be able to shave yourself down too much.
It's a lot harder. It's sure a lot harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a heck of a lot harder.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would you say to this question? Like, what does Manifold solve for brokers and carriers? What is your main goal here? I mean, what's kind of the reason for the creation? What was the problem you saw and said, this needs to be solved?
When you're bidding on spot freight at scale, it's just very difficult, right? And so if you're a broker, and I guess we'll talk about brokers right now. Like when we had tens of 40,000 some odd opportunities. I don't know, tons of opportunities each week that we could go bid on. Well, that's a really hard thing to go bid on at all. And so that and the only way to automate that is to have it all in one spot, right? At some level, before you even can start to talk about bid automation, you got to go bring it all into one spot. And so that's the biggest thing that Manifold solves, is it brings all your spot freight into one spot. Now it means two different things for a broker or carrier. For a broker, you're helping them bid on more freight, right? Ultimately, a broker can bid on more freight, and that's a great thing for them. And therefore they can make more revenue and profit.
Yeah, you're just cutting down on the busy work, right? You're just putting it all in one spot. That's like the whole crisis I was trying to solve in the carriers. I mean, I couldn't solve it. I know nothing about tech. But I always said, and EF Routing has done somewhat of a decent job at this. They're trying their best. There needs to be a way for carriers, and I guess it's not so much for brokers. They're looking for trucks. For carriers, I just wanted one load board, man. Like I wanted every broker load board, every load board in one place. And I mean, it'll probably never happen because, that's the economics of it. Everybody wants their money. But I mean, man, as a carrier, how great of a feeling would it be if I had one tab and just every load in America, every possible place where freight can be posted is just in front of me, right?
Sure.
So I feel like Manifold is sort of the brokerage and I guess spot bidding process of this idea.
No, it is, but that's the thing for carriers too. It's like we offer that for carriers too. Exactly that. Now you're right. We can't literally get every load in America, but
obviously,
that's our dream. And
there's red tape. There's a reason that there's states and countries and governments. Sure. there's a reason for division of things for sure.
But I encourage any carriers out there that want that to have this dream of like, hey, I want one load board for me to go find all my loads. Talk to us. I bet we can get closer to the reality of that than the way.
I mean, dude, in trucking, it's so inefficient because everybody's standing in their own way, right? Like every brokerage wants to have their proprietary load board.
Yeah.
And then every, the load board companies, they want their own business. And nobody will ever be like, oh, we're just going to all get together and hug each other and sing Kumbaya and have a big load board. But at the same time, I think that people don't understand the dispatch side of things, where it's like, man, if I want to look at, imagine this situation, right?
Yeah.
So you have one truck and you want to find a load for that truck. So now you open like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different brokerages load boards, then the main load boards, and then that's fine. That's all fine and dandy. You have like 12 tabs open. That's one truck, man. And you got to do that again and again and again and again. And most dispatchers handle 5 to 6 units. That's an average number.
Yeah.
So then you multiply, you're at like 56 tabs. You can't monitor that. You're just
Alex, you're selling my product. What's up?
No, man.
We didn't pre-plan this.
I'm not killing it, man. I'm planting the seed for the. I like what Manifold's doing, right? Like you guys have that idea. Like this is the tab. You go in this tab, you bid on your freight, and you're literally doing what I've always wanted, but just for a different problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way to sell stuff. Like, guys, here's one place.
Yep, it's
one place. How you do your job. Like, you just log into this place.
Yep.
And you can do your job in this place. And I mean, I feel like I can like feel the stress leaving my body, imagining like Manifold, like, oh, if I'm bidding on 500 different shippers, now I'm just doing it in one screen, right? So.
That's right. That's our big dream, or that's like what we want to sell, and hopefully works for people, right?
Yeah. So let's get into that. So I want to explain, or I guess I'll let you explain this. So you are relatively a new company.
Yeah, we're 7 months old now. We started incorporated in January. Yeah. And
I just want to get that out there in case anybody's wondering, like, oh, is this guy, where's this product been? Who's this guy? Like, what's all of this? Like, so you are a startup, literally.
Very much a startup. Yeah. But there's a small team of us. We, been working like hell to get the product out. Our first customer was a customer called Stevens Trucking. Great customer. This guy, Cole Stevens, he's a great guy. And it was like when I called him up, it was like offering the product. He's like, kind of like, you almost like, wait, I can have all of my spot freight in one spot. Yeah. And we're like, hell yeah. It took us about 2 months for him. They're a fairly larger operation. I think they got a decent amount of trucks. And we're like, yeah, we'll get all your spot freight in one spot. So we helped. It took us about 2 months to do that. And they're running pretty well. I'd call them like our beta customer. And we're still looking for that. We're still like in this early stage where we need those customers that are.
Yeah, that's the thing with these trucking logistics startups. I mean, I'm sure this is just a startup rule in general, but I mean, in freight, you just need somebody to believe in you, right? Especially with freight tech. Like, you need somebody to like understand the vision. And I think with freight tech, and I'm like, this probably applies to other industries.
Yeah.
But like, you're more so just selling yourself at that point. So you're like, hey guys, like, this is the dream. This is the product. It works. It's great. But like, I've done it like this. Everybody that I work with is people I like to work with, especially regarding sponsorships in this podcast. Like, I don't want to get into business with people that are like hard to work with or like difficult to talk to. Yeah. And I think as a startup, like, you really just need to sell yourself to people. Like, it might be a little bumpy, we're starting out, but I'm going to work on this and I want this to work for you. And I think that's kind of, you need those people that are like, you know what, let me give this guy a chance.
Yeah.
That's how it grows, right? It's a snowball effect from there.
Yeah, that's it. And, you just got to have you just got to say persistence, right? I will say this is the hardest thing I've ever done by far. Yeah. It's, because it's lonely. I remember I was at Manifest. I was at Manifest and I had no one to talk to. I went to this conference all by myself and I, and like, I'm like trying to scrape. Like, I remember I was chasing this guy. Probably, he's probably not watching, but there's a CFO of this trucking company, and somehow I saw him, and I like ran to him, and I'm like walking next to him, like nervous as hell because I'm like freaking out. Like, I'm an introvert. I'm an engineer. And I'm like, hey, like, can I tell you about Manifold? Like, I'm like trying to spread the gospel or something.
Yeah, you're like trying to be like, calm about it and trying to act like, you're in control of the situation. Exactly. Your heart's just like beating.
Yeah. And
so how did it go?
ATA event like later in like Louisiana, but it was really like for fleets. And so it was like totally like the wrong audience. It was a bunch of like, everyone's trying to sell like tires and trying to sell like trailers, and I'm like, wrong audience, but I'm there, so I'm like wandering around. It was actually really cool experience. But, it's tough.
I mean, it's funny you say that because when we talked yesterday, I would say the first 10 minutes you were pretty stiff, but I mean, me and you, like, we kind of got that good energy. I think I've brought you out of your shell a little bit because I mean, that's the thing with you tech bros. You guys are really smart guys, and I mean, a lot of you guys are pretty, focused on the task at hand. And I mean, it's tough to find people like you that are also like very fun to talk to. I mean, you are like, I enjoy spending time with you. I enjoy talking to you. And I mean, it's tough because it's tough to come on screen. It's tough to come on a live podcast. And I mean, a lot of people are nervous, right? Like they change. And I mean, I think this is like a good test for you because next time you go to some, hopefully the right audience event, hopefully you're not at a tire show again.
That's what I'm hoping.
But I mean, just, remember this experience and be like, oh, I got this. And just tone it down a little, explain your product.
Yeah. You just got to pick yourself up each time, try again, I
mean, that's the thing with the startup life. So do you have any tips for anybody that's out there that's like, hey, man, I want to do something, I want to do a freight startup. I mean, you have any like do's and don'ts that you've kind of gone through?
Sure. I'm on the spot. I would say one is make sure you have a good financial cushion. Because it's expensive, or make sure you're just in a good place. The second thing is I really am a strong believer in bootstrapping now. And I'm, like I'm a single founder. I've only founded one company, so there's people that found a lot more. But I think the idea of bootstrapping actually makes a lot of sense. And I'm saying there's a point where you need to go make the jump and you just go quit your job. But there's a great thing I think happens when you're bootstrapping and you're just kind of like riffing on an idea where you can be unattached to it, right? Where you're like, oh, maybe this is a bad idea. I'm going to go drop it. I'm going to go try something else.
Yeah, like something where it's like borderline a hobby and you're just kind of putting your free time into it, seeing how it goes.
Yes, like exactly. Like, and I almost like a similar, I don't know what, you're doing this podcast and based on
I mean, this is like my hobby, but I mean, it's snowball. I put a lot of effort into this. And like we talked about this yesterday, like I used to play a lot of video games. Since the podcast started, I've got back to my like video editing. And that's something I do enjoy. So I don't really like view this as work. And I get to talk to awesome people and hear like crazy stories. And I've got my structure now where I like it to be. So I get to be a little more present in my podcast. And I mean, this is my hobby, but I think it
turns into something awesome. Right. Yeah. But like, I think
it's the thing. If somebody tells me tomorrow, like your podcast sucks and I could just turn it off, I wouldn't like lose sleep over it. Right. Like I'm not.
Exactly.
But, I hope that doesn't happen. I love doing this podcast. I hope it's like I'm looking at like we're trying to do some plans for like some real life documentary, and we're trying to we're spitballing some big ideas.
I love it. Have some fun with it, right? Like that's all you can ask out of life. That's all you can.
So I mean, other than that, I mean, what would you say is like specific to freight? I mean, this is actually a better question for you.
Yeah.
What would you like? What kind of advice would you give to somebody that isn't in freight tech, that just is in tech in general, like an engineer like yourself that wants to get into trucking? I mean, what were the struggles you had, getting into freight as an industry?
Yeah, I would heavily suggest they go work at a freight company first. So I would go, I'd go apply to any freight company and I would go work there and I'd go get to know the people. I think it's so hard. In fact, it's just a really hard thing to have no freight experience and just come on to the scene and be like, okay, I'm going to go build a freight product. It's like, and it's probably like where like, if we want to say tech bros probably get a bad rap generally speaking.
Yeah. They do try to do that shit. They do. Like,
it's not just the trucking industry, by the way. It's anything. It's like Silicon Valley, if we want to even further genericize it, they go in with a bunch of investment money. We're like, we're going to reshape the food industry or farming, or, you got a bunch of farmers out there that are like
a tractor in their life before.
I'd like to see you try, I think that's the wrong way to do it. I think the right way is like you change from you go really learn about it. And by the way, I think you'll be more successful because I think that's like why, there's been a lot of tech fails in the industry. And I think a lot of them are due to outsiders coming in.
Yeah. And just not respecting the culture, not wanting to put in the effort to understand the community that they're actually involving themselves with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, man. Give us the last, some closing words about Manifold before we get into some fun things, and then we're wrapping it up slowly.
Sounds great. Yeah. Hey, we're just a new company out here, trying to find our place. Mostly trying to do more learning than actually trying to sell. So, if you want to talk to someone about aggregating spot freight or the spot market or something like that, love to talk to you. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think that's, kind of the best thing. Like, just, hey, you want to talk to us? Cool, man. I don't like those people that aggressively try to sell me stuff. Like, just tell me what you do in like a sentence or two. And if it sounds kind of interesting, maybe I'll talk to you. But don't hit me with the 9-paragraph DMs, man. I mean, just tell me what you do. And
I did do that, by the way, early on. I was like, let me write an essay for you on what I'm trying to do. And like, crickets. I'm like, okay.
Well crafted, man. Sat out like he was like writing a novel. 6-week journey. Sat on a beach somewhere. He was crafting this awesome.
I spent so much time on those things, and they like yielded nothing. And I'm like, no, I really care.
Return out of it. Yeah. Oh man, just hit me short and sweet, man. Tell me what you do. Yeah. Ask me if I got some time. Probably I'll have some time if it's cool,
Sounds good.
But yeah. Anyways, man, let's move in to hobbies. Do you have any? Because I've been starting to hit a brick wall with this question, where people are just telling me my hobby is work, and I'm like, it doesn't really qualify as a hobby.
I love construction.
Do you like fishing?
Nah, not really.
I don't know why. You just look like you like fishing.
That'd be cool. I wish I did. But no, it's a little bit too. Actually, I love being on a beach. I'm a relaxing guy, but no, fishing's not my thing. But my hobby though is I love construction. So we bought a fixer-upper. I have done
you like actually fixing like construction, man. Like
I'm gonna brag, or what they call it these days.
Flex. Yeah, it's like a weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, a weird flex. I redid my roof by myself. Actually, my wife, I have to give her credit. Actually, she was right up there with me. Redid the roof. Built this room that I'm in right now. This used to be part of the garage. Everything from top to bottom.
Drywall, everything.
Did all the electrical in the house. Did all of the plumbing in the house.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I think coming from a tech bro, that is the most insane possible answer I've ever heard of. And like, congratulations, that stuff's all like very difficult. Did you just YouTube it, or like, how did you get to that point?
When I was young, my grandparents had a farm, and so that's where I learned a lot of construction.
So you grew up in the country, man.
Yeah, and then I did roofing in high school. I remember actually the funny story. I tried to get my friends involved in the roofing, and like his mom drove by and he saw us both on a roof together. We were like taking off the shingle. She gets out. She's like, David, get off the roof. Apparently that was cool.
I used to dig really deep holes to find like drain pipes, and I used to be like 8, 9, 10 feet in the ground, looking up at like a new construction, and there's guys on the roof doing the roof. Yeah. And they're up on this like roof yelling at me like, how can you be that deep in that hole and not be scared? I'm like, how can you be up on that roof and not be scared? I hate the roof, man. I absolutely cannot stand standing on roofs. I hate it, dude. So yeah, I mean, but you grew up in the country, so that's a little less. It's a little less surprising that you're good with your hands. You kind of understand the general fixer-upper kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's all.
I mean, the country is a different lifestyle, right? Like you can't always buy it. You can't always call someone. You got to learn some stuff out there. So.
My grandparents were cheap as hell, so everything.
Yeah, that also helps. I used to work with a bunch of Ukrainians, and something broke. I don't know, some shovel or something. And this guy, I see him in the back of the Sprinter van, like welding the shovel back together. And I was like, dude, it's like $10. Just go buy a new shovel. And he's like, that's not how life works, man. Like, you got to fix it. And then if it breaks, you got to fix it again. You got to fix it until you can't fix it again. Like, I'm like, fuck's sakes. He's like, life isn't just buying new stuff, man. It's fixing stuff.
Yep. I so love it.
I've been around it, bro. I've been around it. But, in terms of sports, man, any sports? What do you watch? Any sports? You play any sports?
I'm sorry, man. That's where you got me.
That's where you're the tech bro again. Like.
Yeah. I don't. I'm not too into sports. I'll watch a game. Like I enjoy it.
Yeah, like you'll watch the Super Bowl. You'll watch the finals or something. I mean,
my favorite thing, actually, what will get me into sports if I bet on it. if you were like, we're putting money on this game, I will care about that because I'm kind of a gambler. I'll be like, I really care, and I will get like all insane,
Yeah, I love honestly my like one guilty pleasure. I love sports betting, but like in very small amounts. Like I hate gambling. I've never been a gambler. But like, dude, I will put $20 on a game and care about it like my life depends.
It's so much fun. It's
like,
so
yeah,
much
like $20, $40. If it's Manchester United, I'll put maximum like a $50 bet. And I'm like right there. I'm like breathing. Dude, I don't know how people have gambling addictions, like to bet like $1,000 or like dude, if I bet $1,000 on a sporting event, I probably wouldn't be able to watch it because I would have a heart attack.
Yeah, it's no fun, but it's interesting that and what's funny is like that $50, even the 50. By the way, that'd be rich for me too. I'm more than $20.
50 is a big bet, dude.
But so you're literally talking about winning $20, which it's not that much money. It's like money, but it's like whatever. But why do I care so much? Like for some reason that thing is now like the biggest
sports thing betting. Like, but I can't get in with the parlay thing. I don't like betting on like 17 games and like paying attention to 17 different outcomes. I just like to bet on like one game, who wins, who loses.
I want to watch that game all the way through, and as long as
I just want to sit down. Like honestly, I kind of view it as just like entertainment. Like I could spend $30-$40 and go to the movies, or I could just like watch a soccer game. So.
Yeah, me too.
But okay, so you're not watching sports unless you're betting $20 on it.
I guess so.
Moving on, what type of music is for you? What's your genre?
Reggae music. Artist? Reggae music my entire life. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, you're full of just like the most like insane answers that I couldn't believe. Like, who's your favorite artist or top two?
I'm a big Bob Marley fan, a big Peter Tosh fan, the Toots and the My Tosh. I don't know. I could go pretty deep.
Reggae is pretty vibey. You could pretty much vibe to most of it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't.
No, I think that's true. I mean, like that's my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, like my buddy in high school used to bump a lot of reggae, and he would just put on like YouTube like a 20-hour playlist that just says like reggae, and like it just all kind of sounds the same to me.
I hear that. There's a lot of Bob Marley's that like the same background track is he just like put new lyrics on it. I'm like, I recognize this song.
But all right, man. I mean, we're almost at the end here. What is your craziest logistics story? Freight related, logistics related. I mean, I guess at this point it'll probably be a Convoy story since that was your home for the whole duration.
Yeah, none of them would be like my personal stories. It'd be more like the stories that I heard. Like, I mean,
it's true because you were just kind of like doing the tech stuff.
Yeah, so I worked with pretty closely with the operations folk, and so I would get a lot of their stuff. They'd be like, "Gosh."
Yeah. So what was like the craziest operation story you just kind of heard at the water cooler then?
Yeah, well, I got to see the whole video too. It was this truck driver that was really frustrated at us because we scheduled a drop off. We made mistakes when the facility was closed. So the guy goes down a culvert, like it's not a super deep one because otherwise you'd got stuck. He drives over. He then turns his truck around and he opens the gate and he just does one of those. I've seen other videos of it where he drives forward and he just slams on the brakes or whatever, and all the stuff gets shot out or drives reverse. And then
like
he left.
Video, like that viral video of the guy at the scrapyard. Like
it was a different one than that.
Obviously, no, it wasn't that video, but like that viral video where the guy's just dumping scrap out the back. Like,
the guy
actually did that.
Yeah, some guy like and just like.
Yo, dude.
Or another fun one.
You know what the product was? Was it on pallets?
I don't remember. Another fun one though was the what was it? Oh, so we had all these trailers, right, that we were renting out. So they would get lost sometimes. And one time we saw a picture of it where someone opened up a watermelon stand right out of the trailer. Like they just used our trailer for a watermelon stand. And they're like, what the hell?
I like how casual you are about we just lost trailers sometimes. Shit happens, bro. But a guy opened a watermelon stand, literally selling watermelons
out of our trailer. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Actually, that reminds me of that. I was watching it was like Australia truck drivers show on Discovery or something like that. And these guys had a butcher shop that was in the back of a reefer trailer. And they drove it like a couple hundred, miles at a time to different cities. And it was like a legitimate storefront. Like it had a ramp so you could walk into it.
Yeah.
And a cash register. It had like all the refrigerators with just meat. And I was like, damn, right? They owned a farm, right? So they stocked it themselves, and then
Yeah.
they just drove around the country until they ran out of meat. And I was like, that's a pretty unique idea, dude. Like,
Yeah.
but this guy stealing your trailer to sell watermelons is a little bit more insane than that.
Hey, he's just trying to make a living.
Yeah, it is what it is, dude. But let's get into this, man. Basically, I don't want to force anybody to answer this question. You can skip this question. And just keep in mind, this is your image on the line, not mine. So, what is your favorite joke?
Oh, I can't answer. I don't have a joke. I'm not a joke. I'm
Yeah, that's the thing. So jokes have kind of disappeared, right? Because
Yeah.
when you were younger, you had a bunch of jokes because there was no internet and stuff and no memes. And now we just kind of send each other the jokes.
It's unfortunate, And by the way,
it is unfortunate, honestly, a little bit. Like,
all of my jokes that I could give you are all not. I can't give on the air because they're from my uncle. Like, and he was a dirty man, and like God bless his soul, I love the guy, but. No.
I mean, there's just jokes that are for friends, and there's jokes for a live podcast, and they're just not. But all right, man, we're getting into the absolute final and most famous part of this show. It's going to be Chicken Wing Choices, sponsored by Fair Trade Workforce, with founder Vince Gonzalez, offering nearshore employees at recession-proof rates. And now we are going to do Chicken Wing Choices. So, when you eat chicken wings, is it drums or flats?
Flats.
Ranch or blue cheese?
Blue cheese.
Oh, nice. Okay, nice. Breaded or non-breaded?
Non-breaded.
All right. I mean, you got 1 out of 3, but you got the hardest one, the most important one, the one that I enjoy the most too. So, I mean, I love blue cheese, dude. I love raw blue cheese. Like, so I love cheese a lot. Like, I could literally buy a block of cheese, and my mom used to get really mad at me because she'd buy like 2 blocks of cheese for lasagna, and then at like 1 a.m, I would wake up and just go take a bite out of it. I wouldn't even cut it, dude. Like, there'd be like teeth marks in the cheese, dude.
Sure, that's great.
So, like I'm like a huge cheese guy, man. But blue cheese, I could just eat that raw.
Yeah.
Blue cheese. Yeah. So, man, I mean, that's it. There's no quiz show. Lev is on vacation in Thailand, so he's going to enjoy that for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's it, man. I mean, Manifold, I'm looking forward to the whole Manifold journey. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your time. And good luck fixing whatever you probably have to fix something. So.
That's right. Never stops. All right. Take care, Alex.
Take it easy, bro. And that wraps up episode 25 of podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. A final shout out to Truckerfy. If you're a truck driver that needs a truck job, or you're a carrier that needs to hire a truck driver, check them out in your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, or if you're a carrier, check out their website, truckerfy.com. Have a good night, everybody.